Comics Wellspring. And yeah, this was printed with Comics Wellspring. Came out beautiful.
High quality stuff. People think it's fantastic. All the books that you see at my table are through Comics Wellspring.
Harry Gerostergios, artist, designer, co-host of Indie Comics Relay, searching for a way to stay awake during the show when an accidental overdose of indie comic book knowledge interacts with his uniquely tangential brain. And now, when Harry grows distracted or bored, startling metamorphosis occurs. He can't help but talk about the Incredible Hulk TV show.
Harry somehow brings up the Incredible Hulk TV show almost every stream that we have.
I love that show.
Nowhere sometimes.
For the same reason why I love Frankenstein, because, you know, Hulk didn't ask to be made. You know, this guy, you know, he was a lab accident, you know, and I feel bad for him, you know, people are trying to kill him. Whatever. Seriously though, if you think about it, how does an adult man get beat up twice an hour every week? Really, I haven't. When's the last time you guys got beaten up?
Previously on the mighty Mascots.
The fearless robot Boom found himself in dire straits after a bullet struck him during a fierce battle with Lana Lennon in issue 6. The impact compromised his targeting system, throwing his precision and control into disarray. Suddenly, a new threat emerged. With no time to waste, Boom makes the decision to have the bullet removed and take his chances with the glitch in his personality matrix. Boom's transformation has set the stage for an epic new chapter, and the story continues in Mighty Mascots issue 10. Issue 10 is a triple-sized anniversary extravaganza, featuring all new content by the same great creative team you know and love. Dive into a thrilling new story, and enjoy 2 exciting backup tales by DC Miller and the Ogle brothers. Choose from 2 stunning alternate covers that capture the essence of this landmark issue, with artwork by Gazbot and Angry Dad Comics. Plus, we've got incredible new perks, including exclusive 3D printed Breakfast Brawler figures. There are 8 figures available in 4 sets. Buy them all to receive a bonus glow in the Dark Mondo figure. And that's not all. Catch up on back issues, grab limited collectibles, and immerse yourself in the Mighty Mascots universe like never before. Support the Mighty Mascots issue 10 on Indiegogo and be a part of this groundbreaking journey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Indie Comics Relay. I'm your host, Keith Gleason, creator of the Mighty Mascots and promoter for the Plastic City Comic-Con. With me is always Johnny C., creator of Sartana, Surrounded by Death and the Pond. For who, Johnny?
My good cousin, Roger Morocco, who got me into comics.
Absolutely. And our third co-host, Harry G., graphic artist extraordinaire.
Hey,
what is up, fellas?
Not
Cheers,
fella.
Feel like I'm all over YouTube tonight. I saw you popped on the Angry Geek broadcast about 2 hours ago.
I was like, did I miss the live stream? Because I saw a notification go out.
I saw that too. Actually,
I was like, oh my god, did I pull a Harry and oversleep?
Yeah. Well, no,
only one time.
I ran into Louis Perry at CT Collecticon this weekend, and he's like, "You and Amy coming on my show Monday." I was like, "All right, but as long as it's
that was Louis Perry." 9. I thought that was Macho Man.
Right?
Man back from the dead.
Yeah, I know, right? He looks like
yeah.
It was a
you
fun
know
show.
I really enjoyed it because it was a throwback to listening to what it would be like to listening to like an old school morning zoo radio show.
Oh my god,
right?
You're 100%
because it was like
right.
Lou was on point. You had your support staff, you had your token female voice, and then you had the fucking sound clips. Like, you know what I mean? I was like,
right.
I even, because Amy texted me on the side to let you know, and she was like, "Hey, I'm on the show right now with Keith," and I go, "Is this a morning zoo? Like, what's going on here?"
Right? Oh my god!
Sorry, I missed it. Jeez. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
that's what it felt like. It felt like a morning zoo for sure.
I like it. I like it
Yeah, it
because
was
that's
good.
missing nowadays. So they're doing a really good
like,
job of filling that void.
I was like thinking, like, man, I asked him after the show. I was like, "Is that all through your microphone?" And I guess he uses a soundboard to do it.
No,
I don't know. Maybe it's something to look into for us down the road. You know, it's something fun. And the only thing I think I would do with it is do less, because I thought Lewis did it a little. He relied on it a little too much. Like
I don't know if
if
you
I
rely
did,
on it, or it was just like it like that matched the tone, right?
yeah, right.
So like, even though it made seem like it's too much, I think it was at the same level that Lewis was coming in at. You know what I mean?
Probably. Yeah, yeah.
To that point, I think it matched the whole show, the whole experience. You know
I
what
would
I mean?
like, if we used it, I would like Harry. I'd like it to be like Fred on Howard Stern.
Oh, I would love to do it.
He knows how to put those sounds in at the right moment. You know, like
let's not copy that show exactly. Let's do like a morning Zoobly Zoo, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
The thing is, like, I'd use it on the show, but it would be, I think it would sparingly. I'd like to use it, you know. So
I think the trick the trick and the key to using sound effects, right, is not to take a lot of actual sound effects and doing more like
drops,
sound clips from movies that are relevant.
Yeah.
Or things that we say that are funny that can be reiterated as a soundbite.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, definitely. Definitely, man. So yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, I think we could use a little bit of that. I don't want to like overpower the show with it, but I would be open to it, you know?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I think it'll bring like a radio personality element to the show that, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me zip through the chat real quick, and then we'll bring in tonight's guest, which I'm super excited to talk to. We got Amy's Birdhouse with us as always. What's up, friend? She said. Edie Sedgwick, who actually showed up at the Angry Geek stream. Well, I was streaming it to our audience as well. So
she is real.
She is. She said hi again, all.
Hello.
It's great to see her.
How crazy would it be if like deceased Edie Sedgwick like found her way into digital consciousness and we're just speaking to the ghost of the actress who just happens to enjoy our show? That's the narrative I want to write here, and that's what I'm going to stick with.
Maybe
yeah, we don't want like Unfriended the movie or something, you know?
Maybe like a Max Headroom, maybe.
Yeah, right. That. There you go. Yep. Manny Gomez. That's a new name I haven't seen before. Hello, hey, Manny. What's up? Thanks for joining us. Let's see. We got Johnny C is saying welcome back to Edie. And Amy says, and away we go.
What's the most famous thing Edie has been in? Movie wise.
She said all Angry Geeks was missing was an air horn. Zubilee Zoo, LOL, Q Ben Vereen discussion. Of
course, yeah.
I knew Harry was going to work in Zubilee Zoo somewhere in there.
Yeah, right.
If it's got to do with Incredible Hulk or Ben Vereen, he's all over.
Yeah, right.
I'll check it off. I'll just check it off my list right now. Well,
yeah, right. And Manny says, "What's up? What's up, Manny? Thanks for joining us." Awesome.
Thanks for
I'm excited to talk about this guest tonight, to talk with him about another fellow promoter, but also he's done some awesome stuff too. He used to be a shop owner, has another site called Monkeys Fighting Robots, a lot of stuff going on, and it just seems like an interesting dude. So without further ado, let's bring in tonight's guest, Mr. Matthew Sardo. What's up, Matt?
How's it going, guys? Are we talking about Z100? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, we were. I was on a show earlier, Matt, like maybe about 2 hours ago, called Angry Geeks, and they're good guys. They operate in the Rhode Island area, but I felt like I was on the morning zoo because it was like sound effects after sound effects. You know, the only thing that was missing was the DJ with that voice. You know, like. You know,
Lou's doing a good job of that, I thought.
He does. But he's more like the wrestling personality. Like,
he's very macho man-y.
Very macho man-y, yeah.
I grew up about 2 hours north of New York City in New York. And so driving as a kid, like I'd be like, we'd get to a certain point of our drive when we were going to like Jersey or something like that. And I'm like, hey, go to Z100, see if we can get it in. And it was always like trying to get that signal coming in and out. So I only had as a kid, it was always like, I could hear it for a second or two, and then it would fade in and out and stuff.
Right on. Were you up in Albany?
No, I was. That's Canada.
Further up?
I was on the Jersey border, Warwick, New York, Orange County. There's like the outlet malls. Not the what is it? Woodbury Commons. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's where the Legoland is now.
Oh,
where I grew up.
Yep. Awesome.
I went to Action Park as a kid. I was like,
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I love that documentary that Max did about that. What'd you say?
No, I've got a scar on my back from Action Park. Like
did
everybody
I know
has a
did
scar.
You really?
Yeah.
That's like a badge of honor.
I was fascinated by that documentary that Max released on Action Park. And I was like, I can't even, only in the 80s could something like that exist, you know? Like, it just, I would have loved to have seen it though as a kid, you know?
You know, it was bonkers. It was definitely bonkers. And it was one of those things where I watched the documentary and I was like, the first hour, I'm like, yeah, these are my memories. And then like the second hour is sadness and death.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, this
oh
is
my God,
trauma.
this is horrible.
Yeah.
Kind of like our Whalen Park over here.
Not as bad though, Harry.
No.
Did you ever see that documentary? I mean, these guys were insane.
Action Park was cutthroat.
Yeah. I mean,
Literally.
Yeah,
Rite of
people
passage,
died, like insane deaths on that freaking place. But anyways, so you grew up in what did you say, like New York area?
Yeah, upstate New York. It's where I grew up. I had a lot of family from the city, so anybody that was not from the city was considered upstate New York. So basically, the whole state of New York minus Manhattan's upstate New York to my relatives. But I was about like 90 minutes north of the city in Orange County, Warwick, New York, is where I grew up.
Gotcha. And so what's your background with comics? I know you've written some comics, but like how did you kind of find comics? Were you were you given one when you were a kid, or were you like
I was like into baseball cards as a kid, and
you were okay.
Conventions in White Plains and doing like all that, like that little circuit of conventions as a kid. And I remember like meeting like Mickey Mantle and like Tom Seaver and doing like that kind of stuff. Cool. And then I got a job. There was a baseball card shop that opened up in the small town, and I got a job as a kid working there on Saturdays, and they had comic books, and I started just getting comic books, and then I was like, oh, baseball cards are boring. Like this is so much better.
What age was this? Do you remember?
Like right around like 12 or 13. I think
okay,
I was
that's
like,
the sweet spot. Yeah, it was a perfect age for
the only old-time baseball player I met was Johnny Pesky, Fenway Park, the Pesky's pole, whatever. Mm-hmm. I was in Swampscott, Mass, with my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, and before that dinner we're having pizza, and I'm like, before that I was telling her, if I could meet anyone, because Ted Williams had just passed away, I'm like, I would love to meet, Johnny Pesky, because he was his wingman in World War II. They left baseball for a short time to go fight in the war. And I'm like, I would love to meet Pesky because, the stories you could tell with like, Ted Williams and like, baseball and whatever, that'd be awesome. And so then we were having pizza, and then like I see this guy walk by. I was kind of like looking at the menu, and I see like this leather jacket walk by me with the old Red Sox logo, like two separate socks. Now they weren't together. And I'm like, oh, what a cool jacket. And I looked up to go ask him where he got it from. And it was Johnny Pesky walking by me. I'm like, holy shit, Johnny Pesky.
He's like, I got this at work.
the guy at the time was probably in his 90s, and I'm like, I'm like, should I go say hi to him? I was like, please don't embarrass me. Like my girlfriend's like, don't. And I'm like, oh, I got to. It was like the one I told you that one time I would love to meet him, So I ran up to him like, Johnny Pesky, and I yelled it so loud. She was like off balance, and I'm like, oh my God. He's like walking with a cane, and I put my hand behind his back. I'm like, oh my God. Yes. I didn't mean to scare you.
Amateur hour with the
fandom. I just wanted to say hi to you, big fan of yours, whatever. But then he died a few, not too long after that, So, and I went to his wedding.
Him.
I went to well.
You
You know
did
how many times? You know how many
yelling.
times?
Yeah, you know.
You know how
gave
many
a
times
heart
I've heard
attack.
that story with other celebrities I've met. You know, I can give you a long string of like, but when I went to the wake, you know, a week after, and his like son was like, "Oh, thank you for coming." I'm like, you know, I'm sure he'll be happy that I just almost killed him like a week ago. And then like I went outside and the TV studio or TV, you know, different TV channels were there, and they're interviewing me. And you know, Keith, I don't know if you know Bonnie Gibson, right?
Yeah,
She was with. She was
used
with.
to work with.
Yeah, she was with me, and so this guy shoved a microphone in my face. Like, so what did Johnny Pesky mean to you? I'm like, oh, you know, I just kind of met. I always been a big fan, you know, and like, you know, I actually met him like a week ago, and he was so, you know, a great guy, you know, back when he was more alive. I couldn't think of what to say, and I said that line. Like, Harry, why would you say that? Like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking, you know.
Back when he was so full of life.
I mean, know, like 1 week ago.
Pastor, thanks for joining us. She blew up Pesky's hearing aid.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he lost his. That's probably what lost his balance. You know, I mean, lost his balance.
That's a great story.
Yeah,
that's like me when the first time I met Todd McFarlane was probably like 92, 93.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I went to Philly, the Philly Con. We drove down from New York to Philly, and they all the image creators were there. That's when they had like the Spawn drag racing car. That was pretty epic. But I was in line and I'm all excited. I'm all hyped up, and you know I have like you know you buy the camera where they had like the film in it, instant camera.
Yeah, like the
Polaroid.
Oh yeah.
Well, like the disposable camera.
Yeah, the disposable.
Yeah. I'm going way back.
And so I finally get to Tom McFarlane, and I was like, hey, can you sign this? And it was I'm trying to think of what Spawn issue it was, but I was so excited. I was like, I gotta have proof because you know. And I take a picture of him and like I blind him with the flash. I literally just like straight up just like boom him with the flash, and he's just like, here's your book, go on. And I was like, I had a moment and I just like ruined it and stuff.
That's me like every like weekly. That's was something.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. But anyways, back to what you're saying, Matt. So you kind of found comics at this store that you worked at. Do you remember what your first comic was?
Well, I was big into G.I. Joe, so I remember getting all the
Yep.
G.I. Joe stuff at that point in time. But then like the owner, he was like, "Hey, you got it." Yeah, I think it was like Spawn. Do I have it on my? I have a wall of comics right in front of me, and I was looking. I was like, "Do I have it?" I think it's like Spider-Man. What's the Hulk Spider-Man McFarlane? Was it like 327 or 328?
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so.
I saw that cover, and I was like, "Holy shit! What is going on with Spider-Man?" And like I picked that up, and then I was just like, "I'm gonna." And the store owner was like, "Yeah, this is Tom McFarlane, blah blah." You know, because as a kid, I just assumed that it was the same guy drawing Spider-Man the whole time. You know, like I didn't have any comprehension of like.
Yeah, I was the same way actually. Like a lot of the artwork looked very similar back then, and you thought like, oh, it's just you know there was like a house style, but you thought it was like a group of guys that just did the same kind of style artwork. And then when you see McFarlane, it's like culture. It's like shell shock, you know, like it's so detailed and like different, you know.
It's like when you see those artists back in the day, they're all so Kirby adjacent that they're aping his style, right?
Yes,
like
but none of them were ever as
style.
good,
No,
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, there was
guys.
Ramita, you know, senior, and then you have like George Perez, and those are like the two styles that were imprinted in my head of like,
yes,
this is what comic books look like.
Yep.
And then to like see McFarlane, I just like went back and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get every issue now. And then I started digging, and then like that's when you get like a paper price guide. I forgot it was like Comics Buyer's Guide, where it was like.
So you grew up in the sweet spot of comics, like that's where I grew up too. And Johnny, I think you did too, for the most part.
Yeah,
right?
The early '90s was my introduction to comics.
But what I was going to say too is my introduction was similar to yours. Like I was more the Transformers guy, and I think one of my first comics was the Transformers Marvel series, and then I think I bought that, and then I bought. Do you remember when Marvel had an Indiana Jones comic? It was like a monthly comic. So my gateway was kind of like those cartoons and movies, and then I think after that I tried Spider-Man, and I was hooked forever after that. You know, so
because I think like Tim Drake was just getting introduced as well.
Yep.
And so I was like going in a freshman in high school, and I was like, "There's a Robin my age, and he's in high school," and I was like, "This is amazing!" Like,
yeah, right.
and
all
now
that stuff works. Like you think back to it now, and like why they do it, like why cartoons always had like the crappy little sidekick, you know, like all that stuff works though. Like if you think about it, it's genius, you know.
Yeah, and then then it was like, so I was just diving into it and everything, got everything, and then I remember going by like a Walden Books, you know, and it was like I think it's like the third or fourth printing of The Killing Joke. I picked that up as a kid, and I was like, well, this is not right. I was just like, it was just like, I'm not supposed to be sad reading comic books,
right?
And then like I was like, okay, this is a different world, and we have
yeah,
to,
I think
keep going.
a lot of, you know, I love that stuff too, like the Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen. I also like think it kind of took the innocence out of comics, you know, at that point. But
oh yeah, no, there's definitely like there's like key moments where I was like, oh, there's where I lost a little bit of my innocence, and that was like Killing Joke is like right there. And then
yeah, absolutely.
I read the Dark Knight afterwards, and Dark Knight wasn't that like, I was like an '80s kid of action movies, so Dark Knight kind of just fits right into that section.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was like everything that Golan and Globus was coming out with.
Yeah,
you know, like all the ninja movies and stuff. Go ahead, Johnny. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that those books didn't necessarily pioneer that tone the way that some of the other indie books of that era did, but it sure did kick open the doors for that tone to become mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it changed the way comics were perceived and made after that, right? Think of Batman after that. Think of Batman after The Dark Knight Returns, right? It was almost never the same.
Right. And so did you when you were collecting at that time period, did you find any, like, what was your introduction to like an indie comic book? Like, was
my
it
introduction
Spawn?
to indie comic books really, I mean, do we count Image as indie?
Of course.
Kind of.
Okay,
I think so. At the time, I mean, they were kind of like huge, but it's still technically an indie comic, I would think.
Yeah, so I mean, I was all in on all the indie like all the Image relaunches. Like I was like, oh, this is going to be the coolest thing ever, and like, you know, I bought them all, and then I think like Valiant was happening at the same time as well.
I remember when Valiant was happening. Yeah,
and like, so I was there at that, like the Image launch, and I had all the first issues, and I remember being like, Max is amazing, and like, who is this Shadowhawk? And then like, I love the concept of Wildstar, where you had like the alien attached to him.
Yeah.
I was like, they were so cool, you know. And then I think I'm like the biggest like Spartan fan from Wildcats.
Oh,
I was like, who's this android Captain America guy? Like, he's amazing. But yeah, there was just some like really cool ideas that came out of that. And so I was like, I guess those are the first, you know, there must have been like something before that. Because I know I was like digging through and like looking at, because I mean, I don't know if they were like, I don't know if these are independent, but like, I used to read all the rock and roll comic books.
Yeah, I'd say those were
kind of
the
like,
biography ones, right?
Yeah, like I remember having like the Aerosmith like one, and like I think there might have been a Motley Crue or something like that.
Was there a Kiss one?
There was definitely
probably,
a Kiss one.
They'd have to
my good friend Mike Wellman wrote the Faith No More one.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's cool. I remember my first dealings with indie was stuff like The Tick, and then maybe like some of the later issues of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not those early ones, but like the later ones. And and then Images obviously as well. When they broke, I got all of those as well. But yeah, no, it was a great time, I think, for comics in general, because everything was doing well. Indies, you know, regular Marvel, DC, all that stuff. So I think almost everyone we talked to on this show grew up around that era. I think mostly. There's some that are older and younger, of course, but yeah. So you worked in the shop, and then your bio, you said you owned a shop too for a while. Was that like many years later was that?
So yeah, that was a ways later. So early 90s, you know, I was into comic books, and I started doing like the Howard Johnson shows. And
like the old hotel shows,
and, like, I
right?
bought some like collections, and then
those are great.
There was like some guys being like, hey, do you want 300 copies of Valiant for $50? And I was like, yeah, I'll totally be able to resell these. No, I did not.
Was Valiant still popular at the time, or was this?
It was that crossover where like there was like the
Oh yeah,
green
the
and
death.
yellow
Oh
like
god,
foil.
Deathmate. Yeah.
Yeah, the Deathmate stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
here's 300 copies of Deathmate 3. Damn it.
The gold one, the gold variant that was hot for a minute.
Yeah, because I know that I talked to my grandfather and he gave me money to buy 100 copies of Spider-Man 1.
Okay.
And I was like, I remember buying those. And this is where in hindsight, I realized that the guy I worked for was like, he didn't scam me, but he didn't inform me that there was like polybag copies.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I bought 100 and I got him like, I don't know what it was, if they were 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 or whatever, but I got him a whole bunch of polybag copies because of that. And I was like, how much are that? He's like, do I get one of those? He's like, no, you don't get any of those. I was like, I just want 100 of these. Come on, man.
Oh man.
He worked you a little bit. He worked you a little bit because he was like, okay, like I can help you out because here's a bunch of number ones, but that's gonna get me the the nicey rarities in the side.
Yeah, right.
But no,
so you're saying your grandfather gave you money to go buy a bunch of number one comics, huh?
Yeah, he also lost money in the stock market too.
Was he now? I'm really just fascinated here, and partly because I recently watched a documentary that I'll circle back around on this. But was your grandfather somebody who was aware of comics and the value of books and things, or was he just kind of like, "Hey, take a shot at this"?
Well, there was a news article about Spider-Man #1. It did make all the papers, and it might have made the news. That this
it also
was the
coincides too with the death of Superman is around that time too, isn't it? That was another one
a little bit late, a little bit later, maybe like 2 or 3 years later, because it was like, oh, there was this big boom of like new books, and then like a couple years later, it's like, oh, we're killing all the characters off. Like
yeah,
DC
right,
going,
yeah.
It was like you're going up, and then it killed it off. But so like Spider-Man 1 made the news because I think it was like the first. I don't know if it wasn't the first because you had Spectacular and you had Web, so I don't know why it was like a big newsworthy event. I mean, could be Todd McFarlane.
It's probably that, and probably the amount of units they sold for that book, because that's still one of the world records as one of the biggest. I know it's not the biggest, but I think it's up there, isn't it? Like,
yeah, because you had like
10 highest selling comics.
Spider-Man #1, and then you had X-Force, and then you had X-Men #1. Like those all came out right at the same time.
Yeah, and they all were like had the different colors, the different inks on the Spider-Man #1s, and the polybag, all that stuff was multiple copies being bought,
Yeah, they were more expensive, and I think the paper was a little bit better too.
Yeah.
Like a little bit. Like there was something different, more, but it was definitely a very interesting time. But I think it's because it made the newspaper, and then like my grandfather was like, oh, if you get 100 copies of these and you get them for $1.50 or whatever, and then if you're able to sell them for 10, like that's good money. It's a good kind of thing.
I love
so for
that.
$150, you could turn that into $1,000 if you want.
I love that. I love that sense of thought, and even because it doesn't sound like he read comics or anything. It just he thought there was a business opportunity there and pursued it. That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. And the only reason why I bring it up is that I just saw a documentary called "Selling Superman." And it's about this guy who inherited his father's comic book collection.
I seen a preview for that. I want to check that out. Yeah.
And he is now in possession of like one of the top 4 best quality copies of Superman #1. And it's kind of about him like not understanding the value they had in their hands. Right. Oh, wow. And that's a cool and fascinating aspect. And when you said, when you talk about your grandfather just saying, hey, go buy a bunch of, one Spider-Man #1s, like I immediately thought of that kind of like process where you might not know the value you have, That's very cool.
Well, who knew at the time that it was going to go
sharing.
up? Yeah. I think aren't those they're valuable a little bit now too, aren't they? About $15 for #1 of that series. I mean, it's not nothing crazy, but it's about. But still, like if you look at it in terms of investment, but you got to find that buyer, right? When someone wants to actually buy that book, that's the problem with comics.
What's anything really worth though? It's only worth as much as someone's willing to pay for it.
Well, that's the thing,
Right.
But there is, eBay, I always tell people, is the best place to find value for something, because that's what the real prices are, you know.
There'll always be a boomerang for something, right? And as time
Yeah.
passes, things degrade, things fall off. The overprinted amount of Spider-Man #1s becomes fewer by the year, whether we realize it or not. So then you're going to get to a point where those Spider-Man #1s are going to be more rarefied than what you perceive them to be now, right? Or even the way you perceive them to be yesterday. So always hang on to that. You never know when you're flipping through your collection and you pull out a book and you go, oh my God, I have this. And this is now the biggest thing in Hollywood right now. Oh crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yep, absolutely. So Matt, tell us how like the store came about. Like where was it? Like what made you want to open a store? That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so I grew up in New York, and then as soon as I went to college, first year in New York in Orange County Community College, and a friend was like, "Hey, I'm going to California. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I went to California, and there was like, I actually was in Oakland, California, right where Image Comics was.
Oh,
But
cool.
but I didn't read that they were located there. And I was like out of comics at that point in time because I had to like pay bills and
Yeah.
work and do other
You
things.
moved to Oakland, by the way? Or I'm sorry, you
Yeah,
moved to
I
California?
lived in Alameda, California, which is a little island off of Oakland, and I was there for 7 years, and then I had a buddy who was like, "Hey, I'm going to Chicago. You wanna go to Chicago?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds awesome." I came there and it was like, great. I'm a big Bears fan, so I was like, "This is awesome." And, I went back to school when I was there, and, I finished school, and I wanted to be a journalist, like a sports journalist, and if I wanted to do that, I had to move to, like, Decatur, Illinois, the middle of nowhere, and be
Okay.
poor and broke, and if I was like, "I'm gonna be poor and broke, I might as well do something I wanna do," and I got back into comic books because this is, like, 2006, so I had, like, all of 2000 to catch up. When I was bartending and going back to school, I had money so then I could buy comic books again and get back into it, and I was like, "This is amazing, everything's awesome." They brought back Hal Jordan and, like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did Identity Crisis, and DC was doing crazy things and all this fun stuff, and, and I was bartending, I was making good money, and I was able to save money, and I was like, "If I'm gonna be poor and broke doing something, like, let me do a comic book store." Like, it was
Okay.
like those were the 2 paths that I wanted to take, and so I opened up a store, it was awesome.
And this is in Chicago?
This is in Chicago, I was a mile
Yeah.
north of Wrigley Field, and it was awesome. We got nominated for a couple Eisners,
Oh,
and we
did you
did some
really? That's
Congrats,
awesome.
man. Awesome.
yeah, we did some wacky videos to promote that, and we realized that the Eisner, judging committee didn't like funny videos about comic book
Oh,
stores.
no.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and, it was during the recession, and so it was
Okay.
and owning comic book stores tough to begin with, and it was during that, like, recession,
Yep, like
2006.
the 2008 to like
Yeah, all that stuff, and they, like,
2011.
even
Yeah.
dug up the street in front of my, store, and they even, like, closed down the train stop by my store, and so I was always, like, trying to, like, hustle
Ugh.
different ways. So I was doing, like I did a winter con where we had, like, 40 creators come in over 2 days. Everybody had, like, a 2-hour window to come to the store and do signings and do stuff, and I just shuffled them in, through it, and, like, we did, like, Zombie Con, and we did, like, we did, like, something big every quarter,
Okay.
and I was always hustling doing that. My big claim to fame for owning the store is we got to see The Dark Knight a week before it came out.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
So I rented out the IMAX, and I was like
Fit
450
lovely there.
yeah, it was like 451 seats in the IMAX in downtown Chicago, and little did I know, the guy didn't clear it with Warner Brothers.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
And I also, I was like, "Oh," they were selling me group ticket rates at, like, $8. I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, I'll sell them for $12."
Yeah.
And so Warner Brothers, because then I tried to do it for The Watchmen, and I get a call from the manager at the IMAX, and he's like, "Hey, Warner Brothers lawyers are sending, like, a spy in to try to buy a ticket from you. They wanna get you on scalping." And so this
Oh.
lady walks in, she's like, "I would like 1 ticket to Watchmen." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I got" she's like, "I hear this is where you can get Watchmen tickets." I was like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. No way." And I see her get back in the car, and I see, like, a couple suits in the car, and they look at me, and I look at them, and then they, like, drive away. And, then, like, a lawyer from LA calls, and he's like he starts yelling at me. And I was like, "Dude, I'm a comic book store. I think I made like $2,000 off of this.
Yeah.
I was like, do you want me to send you a check for $2,000? You know, your movie made $1 billion. Like, do you want my $2,000? But so now that's why IMAX does like their tiered pricing on Friday night, because of like, they're like, oh, this guy can charge more for tickets. Like, we can totally charge more on Fridays and Saturdays, and all those rules and regulations are my fault. So I apologize to everybody.
Thanks, Matt.
But seeing The Dark Knight a week in advance was amazing.
That's cool. That's really cool. And it wasn't like I was like, you don't see. I don't think back then the pirating was as bad where you could see it right away. Anyways, you know.
I did have a guy.
Did you have a guy?
I lived in the city. I had this guy who came in.
Was it Kramer?
Yeah,
with a little handheld video.
But yeah, he would
Just
always
tell me the name of the movie you'd want to see.
Right.
I know he'd have a jacket and he'd like be like, "Look at all these CDs I got. What do you want to see?" And I was like, "I don't really want to see this."
Oh, that's so funny about the Watchmen, though. That's great.
God bless the bootleggers, because they kept some properties alive where otherwise they would have died or fell into obscurity. So I still believe that there's a purpose for that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I was trying to figure out, because owning the comic book store, I ended up, having, 300 regulars and all different personalities come in and all that stuff. And I remember there being a group of like 3 or 4 guys who were like, oh man, I want to go see the movie, but I don't want to go see the movie or whatever it is. And he's like, they'll be like, oh, I saw this crappy copy. And it was like the guy holding the camera. And I was like, why? Like, well, I don't, for me, it's like, there isn't enough in a shitty movie to have it be a shitty copy. Like I would just not see the movie. Yeah.
That's the way I am. I'm like, my wife, it drives my wife nuts. Like if something's not in 4K and it's only 1080p, I'm like, wait for the 4K.
Quality snob.
Yeah, like I'm a quality snob, so I have a hard time watching like stuff like that unless
or subtitles.
It's the only option,
foreign language subtitles.
Yeah, no, I can deal with that if it's something.
I don't know if I could.
I remember getting an advanced copy of Attack of the Clones that was a camera in a theater, but it was a really good copy, and it was at a time where the internet wasn't predominant where you could download it or whatever. It was just like you're lucky to get a tape if you can get a tape, and I was running around the mall trying to sell copies of episode 2 like before it came out. I was like, yo, you want to see Attack of the Clones early? I got it right here. I remember selling it to my dad's coworkers.
You would have been the guy in Chicago.
In middle school, I was the kid selling Mortal Kombat codes, like transcribed out of like guides that you go to the library or like the bookstore. You transcribe all the codes and the secrets, and you compile them together, and then you sell them in school. I was that guy.
The shit I learn about Johnny on this show.
I mean, you couldn't. I was a big fan of the blow pop guy. There's always the guy who got a bag of blow pops and is like, all right, who wants to buy a blow pop?
Yeah, right.
I had a guy who was only the blue raspberries. He knew where the blue raspberries were. Back when that wasn't a common thing. I'm like, dude, where are you getting these?
I do remember, back in
middle school mafioso. You know,
right. Internet days of like LimeWire and all those places. I forgot what movie I was trying to download. I remember like trying to download it and like leaving my computer on for like 3 days.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
I only got to like 10%, and I was like, I'm just not gonna see this.
Yeah, I remember those days.
I was trying to watch like Jurassic Park 3, and it takes 3 weeks to download.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why not just? I couldn't even be bothered with that. It's like crazy. So funny though. But
we digress.
We digress.
Do. My kids did ask me, it's like, hey, Dad, has the internet been around forever? And I was like, no. It hasn't. It wasn't.
Well, in different forms, I guess. Maybe.
It has in different forms. You're right. Yeah. You're right, Harry.
Right.
But so I remember that the recession era well, Matt. So I've never thought about that because like a lot of the comic stores in this area stayed afloat and during that time period. But I never thought about like how that would affect other, stores in different states and things like that. So when did you actually close your doors there?
Well, it was 2011, and I got married, and my wife didn't like living in the city,
Oh,
so I
okay.
didn't. There's conversations you should have. There's certain conversations you have before you get married, and we
Yeah,
didn't have that one.
Do you
I was
like
like,
big
oh,
brats?
So was
yeah,
that part of the reason you closed too? Like, was it like
yeah,
could you
yeah.
have
No,
stayed open if you wanted to? Like, would you have been able to make it? You think?
it was definitely tough. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of stores that opened up at the same exact time that I did. There was definitely a lot of competition, but like healthy competition. It was tough. I mean, it was. I don't know what it was. It was. It's a completely different market now.
It
Um,
is. Yeah. Like,
and like I was working with subscribers and trying to build the subscriber base, and like
yeah.
I was more of a reader shop. If I started it over, I probably would have done it completely different and everything like that. But I learned a lot, and it was like an amazing time. So I really don't have any regrets, like shutting it
Yeah.
down
Were
and
you
moving
able
on.
to get out of it without a lot of like bills and or like or did you end up having to like did you have a
I
lot of debt after you closed or were you able to kind of get out of it with
I mean, I declared bankruptcy. It was
Oh,
just
okay.
there
So
was
you
a
did
lot
it
of
that
stuff.
way.
Yeah, so I kind of just
Gotcha.
like whoop.
Yeah, right.
You're just gonna
That's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, definitely. No, but I admire that, man. I admire because I've worked at a bunch of shops over the years, a bunch of different kind of shops. And I've seen, well-run stores and poorly run stores. So it's kind of like cool to hear what you were doing. Like it sounds like it was, a nice store. And I
Yeah.
like that you were a reader store because I feel like that's where the longevity of comics is the readers, not the collectors. So I'm glad you kind of fostered that.
Yeah, we had a good staff that I call them kids. I mean, they're probably all old now.
Yeah.
But the kids that were working with me, like they would look through the previous catalogs and be like, "Hey, Matt, you got to buy this. Hey, Matt, you got to get this." I'm trying to think of
That's cool.
the books that they were picking out at the time. I know Mark Waid was doing like Unbreakable and Irredeemable.
Oh yeah, those are great. Yeah, I love those books.
redeemable right up there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so good. I've got the whole run on both of those. Love those books.
yeah, but there was a whole. That's when like some people were dissing this time of that time for indie books, and I was like, I don't think you were actually reading books at that time. I was like, they were saying it was like a weaker time. I was like, this is where the resurgence of writers came back. Like,
Yeah, I don't
and,
think
and
so at all. Like
yeah,
I think a lot I think indies have been strong all along. Like there's great stuff. You name any year from now back to like 1990, you could find a couple indie books that were hot and popular at that
Even
time.
further back, it's
Oh
always
yeah,
been there.
absolutely.
yeah,
It's always
Yeah.
subculture, right? It's
Yep.
counterculture. That's the way it was. There's a few times where indies kind of breached the mainstream, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, there's that blessed era in the 90s where, Hollywood started turning to indies to make movies. And that's where we got classics like The Crow and The Mask and things of that nature. And,
But also think about the time he's talking about. That's
yeah. The
when
Walking Dead was like
Walking
one of
Walking
our
Dead was
biggest selling
huge.
books. One of the subscribers.
Valiant had just started again, and they had like some amazing creators on there, like Robert
Ninjak,
Venditti and
that really awesome
Matt
movie thing.
Kent and all those guys were working on the Valiant books at the time, and those were amazing. And right when they started again, yeah, there was a ton of stuff. I'd have to really look through my collection to kind of pinpoint that era.
Yeah, like the
again,
Luna
but-
brothers were doing like Sword, and they had a couple different books as well. I'm trying to think of all the
Archer
big
and
names.
Armstrong.
Yeah,
that was a great
huge
one.
book.
Another
That was a
Valiant
huge book then. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Bendis was doing stuff, and Mark Millar was doing his stuff as well.
Yep.
Like I think Kick Ass came out.
Yeah, that's right. Kick Ass. Yep.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, so
God,
good.
I love that book.
It's great stuff.
But that's where like also like it's not indie comics are a spectrum, and there's all different genres. Even comics in general, just a whole bunch of different genres. And there's a whole bunch of books that were just not on my radar.
Yeah.
But they were still in the shop and stuff. My favorite one from that time was Stuff of Legend. I don't know if you guys read that one.
Heard
It
of
was
the
a-
name.
It's like Third World Publishing.
Okay.
It's an R-rated Toy Story book.
Okay.
Oh.
And it was really good. And like so the teddy bear So like you see the teddy bear, but like when they go into the world, like he's a grizzly bear. Like they actually turn into like
Oh yeah,
so the
that
toy
rings a
soldiers
bell,
kind of looks
actually.
like Captain America, and then like the
Yep.
Jack in the Box is kind of like a ninja kind of dude. Like, and it was all like the pencils. I'm blanking on the artist name, but he did like really good pencil work on it, and it just blew me away. It was a different format too. It was a square book, so it really kind of stuck
This
out.
reminds me of another holiday show I've seen before. My ex-girlfriend took me, well, my girlfriend at the time took me to a burlesque show called.
Oh Jesus!
I'm like, I didn't.
Well, let me take a step.
Wait, are we going to wait?
No,
We're
no,
going
we
into
shouldn't.
a hairy tangent
We
here.
probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Anything weird, because I have a weird sense of humor too. So, well, because I mean, I think I've shared the story before, and like,
Oh, yeah.
Superman 3. Catherine Tate from Doctor Who was at.
Sorry, I had to play like hairy tangent. So go ahead, Harry.
And my girlfriend at the time was telling me about this show called The Slut Cracker, and it was about a toy that came to life. This woman's. I'm like, what? It was in downtown Boston. I'm like, he's like, do you want to go? I'm like, not really. I don't want a slut cracker. I'm like, well, Harry, I mean, it's gonna be mostly women there, and some of the actresses are topless. I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. To see what you're talking about. And the toy that came to life had like, it was a toy, a woman's toy that came to life instead of a nutcracker. It was, a toy that came to life. I'm like, what am I watching here? I'm like, whatever. I had to go through the story though. I mean, it was very bizarre. But the guy was.
Most people don't go to the burlesque show for the story, but I'm glad you were there for it.
That's probably why I shouldn't.
Harry was examining it and trying to.
It was for the story though. I mean, I'm bringing it out now. I waited 10 years for this. To mention this.
There's art in even the basest forms.
And the guy was wearing a penis hat. I'm like, what am I looking at? It was so bizarre. I'm like,
but we digress.
Right. Again,
I don't even know what we were talking about.
Yeah, I know.
I
Johnny,
cannot
get us back on track. Johnny, get us back on.
You mentioned something.
I can't. All I can think of is a guy with a penis head. Thanks, Harry. Let's
It's
rewind
that time of year again. It's that time of year.
Let's rewind it. Let's
It's
rewind
the holidays.
Gotta go, guys. Have a great one. Bye.
Harry, you scared away Edie Sedgwick.
You're scaring off the audience.
The ghost scared the ghost away.
So you guys know that Kevin Bacon lives in Connecticut, right? And
does he?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't
so
know
is this
that
like-
actually.
That's
How
like
many
Kira
degrees is that
Sedgwick's,
away?
like little daughter or kid. Do they have
Kira,
kids?
I think there's got to be.
Kira
like a
Sedgwick is his wife, right?
Yeah.
And I think we actually made the connection that they are related in a
Somehow,
previous. Yeah, I believe so.
Edie, definitely. It was something like that when one of the chats we had like a couple weeks ago or something.
Kira
right?
Sedgwick was her cousin. That's what it was.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, I forget what we were talking about. But what I was gonna segue through is like the fact that when you had your store, you started doing little mini comic cons. So that kind of like, so is that where you got the idea to kind of start this new one, or that you're working on now?
So if there's any comic book stores like listening and want like a solid tip, do a promotion the week before the Super Bowl. There is nothing going on that weekend. It's a complete bye week, and people are craving content because they're like, oh, NFC, AFC championships, I want to do something, blah, blah. And then there's like nothing for the week that weekend. And it's your time to shine in your town to like do.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's amazing. That's where your sports knowledge comes in handy. You know what I mean? Like you can combine both worlds and you can make it work.
Like,
that makes me wish that like we didn't have snow up this way, because that'd be a great weekend to do a show.
Yeah, it would be an amazing weekend to do a show. I'm actually part of Original Art Expo in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
It's actually that weekend, January 24th to 26th. I'll be going down there.
So
I'm now
are you like a co-promoter, or are you?
So I'm like their digital communications director.
Oh, okay.
So
That's cool.
So this past about right before New York City Comic Con, I merged with them, and so we're under Comic Art Fans.
That was definitely going to ask you about that as well, because I saw that you had sent out in your newsletter about them becoming or buying, or did they buy the show from you, or is it like more like they're going to be managing it kind of thing, or is it?
So we kind of just merged kind of thing. So like,
okay,
and I got hired on as the digital director of their company.
I gotcha. So they're going to take more of like the financial burden, maybe, is that would be like fair to say? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so basically, I was able to find a really good partner. Kezra was watching earlier. He's an amazing person that I knew from when I owned a comic book store, and we started chatting about ideas and what he was trying to accomplish with Comic Art Fans and the original Art Expo, and and our ideas kind of just aligned. And also, if I can bring art collector money into the indie scene, that would be like a huge boom.
Yeah.
And so it just made sense to merge with them and make that happen.
I'm a little bit fascinated by Original Art Expo. What's the real focus for that show? It sounds like it's not your typical Comic-Con. What do you guys exhibit?
No. It's kind of, I think tickets are right around like $100 to $300. It's more of an exclusive event kind of thing.
So is it more like a like an art gallery gala kind of thing, like, or something like that, but with a focus on
that's where we want to go with it. It's more of a, I think they have like 70 plus artists and then like 30 art dealers, so it's a good size show. But it's all about buying and selling art, and it's cool. And I'm trying to think of who they had, like Humberto Ramos is there, Adam Hughes.
So strictly stuff like this, right? You're not selling books, you're selling stuff like this,
right?
Yeah,
you're selling artwork. Yeah, selling art. Simon
what is that page, Johnny?
That's from an upcoming project. It's a little bit of a tease. Y'all shouldn't be seeing this, but I wanted to share it.
I'll talk more about that later.
We'll edit that part out.
But no, I love that idea. So like, so this is where like comic artists can go and actually get the value for their artwork. Like,
right. So Comic Art Fans has a huge following, and it's all art collectors.
That's cool. I like that.
It's a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting concept, and it's been around for a long time. I didn't realize how long it had been around. And they do a virtual show twice a year, and we just did Comic Art Live, and we got 26 of the artists from Indie Comics Creator Con to do Hall Indie, and basically you just put up that artwork for sale, and if you're doing commissions or not, and people made some money on Hall I, and for not sitting on your couch and responding to emails. I mean, that's pretty good to make some money doing that.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we did a panel. We did a panel where I had some of the artists come on, and we talked with them and talked about art and talked about Indie Comics Creator Con, and that was really cool. So yeah, we have the 4 shows, because they do the Comics Art Live twice a year. We have Original Art Expo, and now we have IC3. And Kezra's really big into the narrative arts, so they're gonna start having like the original art from like Magic the Gathering cards.
Oh, very cool.
Storyboard art, and like all the narrative arts are gonna eventually be represented at Original Art Expo.
I love that. That's a great idea.
I never don't shake a stick at looking at and buying original indie art. And here's a good story why. 2015 New York Comic-Con Special Edition. I'm very new to the indie comic scene. I think I had just put out Sartana #1. So I'm walking around. I'm trying to connect with creative peers, but I'm also looking to shop and buy cool stuff.
Yeah.
I come across Ryan Otley's table. At the time, the biggest thing Ryan Otley did was Invincible. And at that time, Invincible really wasn't much of anything. It was a very low-tier book. I was able to get the first appearance of, I forget the character's name, but the electricity guy, basically Electro, for the lack of a better description. The first appearance of that character's page from Ryan Otley directly for $75.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really
at the
cool.
time. That was like Invincible wasn't as popular. It was an indie thing, right? I don't know if he thought I need money, so I'm just going to sell this stuff off, right? Like, may have thought that wasn't going to be valuable, and $75.
Yeah, right.
I could now resell that for I don't think I ever want to, because I have this piece of art.
But you could get a couple grand for that now, basically.
Easily.
Yeah.
But so that's why it's really fascinating when I hear that you're putting together, or there is a show out there that's a focus for comic art, and specifically indie comic art, because you never know when it's like buying a lottery ticket. You never know if you find a piece of art that compels you, that you purchase, then the next thing you know, it's a big thing, or it becomes very popular, and it only takes maybe a couple of years to get there.
That's a great thing about Indie Creator Con, though, because like you might see the next big indie comic superstar there, a few years before they pop,
Yeah, last year we had Jesse Lonergan come to the show.
Okay.
And I just saw he posted pages from his DC work. He's doing like New Gods now.
Oh, cool. I saw some artwork from that. That looks really good.
Yeah, and he's really good and super nice guy. And I have it somewhere around here. I had him do last year. I got like 4 artists together, and I was like, hey, I want to do Ninja Turtles because it was like the 40th anniversary. So I had everybody do a sketch of Ninja Turtles, and his Michelangelo is insane.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. Yeah, if you have it, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, we'll have to pull it up. Oh, here we go.
Oh, hang on. Let me make.
Oh, here. Look at that!
Oh, wow, that is so cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I can taste so pizza. Good. This pizza
That's
is so good.
Wow,
love that.
So good.
Even the expression on Michelangelo's face, like he did such a great job of embodying the character in the image. Beautiful work.
Yeah. So like last year was your first show, which me and Johnny were so mad that we missed the cutoff for registration. We found out about it too late, but we were all over this year, so I can't wait to be a part.
When is this year's show again? When is it?
It's in March. I forget the
March 15th.
March 15th. Yeah, which I think is a great weekend for a show. Like I think that would be awesome. And
I think people are out, and like people are done with winter at that point in time. They're like, I have to go out and do something. And
right. Yeah.
And last year, knock on wood, we had good weather. It started to rain at like 6:01. Our show ended at 6, and it started raining at 6:01. So everybody packed up in the rain, but like,
that's perfect. Yeah,
it stayed clear the rest of the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, the first show was amazing. It was really good because I had like no expectations.
Yeah,
and we had about 90 plus artists or 90 plus creators come down, and we probably had about 500 people attend the show. Like it was a good turnout. And like everybody who went to the show, they were walking out with like handfuls of comic books. Like everybody who went to the show, like bought a ton. And I worked really hard. I stressed out insanely. But it was really cool to hear that like people were like, yeah, I sold out of my books. I sold out to some books and stuff. And
that's
I was
cool.
like, oh,
that's awesome. That.
Yeah.
So what would you change this year from last year to make it after your first learning experience from that first show?
It's behind the scenes stuff. Like I hired a PR guy who did nothing. And I also paid for I paid for there was probably about like $2,500 of money that just
I hear that, dude.
Went away.
Yeah. And you like thinking like, where did I spend this? Like, why is my business account like on a lifeline?
Yeah. Because I thought, honestly, thinking about it, like Facebook ads would at least I would at least get my money back from my Facebook ads. And I spent $1,000 on Facebook ads, and I think we made like $250 off of tickets from Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is useless. And
Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Well, when I do the Facebook ads, and I don't know if you do this, Matt, because I do this with Plastic City. I don't make an ad necessarily for Plastic City. I end up always boosting the event because if you get somebody to click interested, that will stay in your feed, especially even when it gets a week before the show and stuff. They get the reminders like, oh, you have this event this week. And So I do that just to get like people to like find the event, so that might be a little tip for you from my end,
Yeah,
but that's how I find I get a lot of engagement from that.
Yeah, because when I did Facebook ads with the comic book store, I would spend $100 and my store would be packed for events. They're like, "Oh yeah, I saw it on Facebook," and they came in, and I mean, like, we're we're almost 20 years later, and there's no return on $1,000 investment. I'm like, this is dumb,
You're right.
But
it's because there's a lot more noise now
stuff.
too on Facebook. I feel like
Yeah, I mean, we could have a 2-hour conversation just about social media and
right. What's effective, what isn't, all that kind of stuff.
I was just gonna say, I really like to hear Manny's feedback here. I think that's the best endorsement the show could have. I don't know if you want to bring it up, Keith.
Yeah,
but the best thing was the bonds everyone formed
last year. I felt like our own little piece of the world for one weekend. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to say too before we start talking about other things is I actually, and Johnny was at SPX once, and I was able to vend at Mice once. And I love that atmosphere of comics and the indie spirit and like, zines and people making, just every kind of comic you can imagine. But I felt so inspired after that being at that show, and I had a smile all weekend and just happy to talk to people, even if they bought something or didn't buy something. I didn't care, and it was amazing. And that's why I'm happy you made a show like that, like, because when I started Plastic City, my plan was kind of to make something like you made, but more like, I think my goal was to make like a 90s Comic-Con, like you had mentioned earlier, the Howard Johnson stuff. That's what my vision was. I wanted a show that was just comics and artists and writers and a guy at the door with the empty cigar box collecting money, like that's what my vision was, and it's kind of grown into like a standard Comic-Con, although I do try to curate it so that we don't have like, energy drink guys and like,
I mean, you do a good, you do a good job of keeping it comic and art and craft centric, you know what I mean?
Yes,
where it's
exactly.
It's that, and it's not like new.
But if I had to do it all over again, Johnny, I would do exactly what Matt's doing. I would love to get more focused on like indie stuff, but maybe someday we'll see.
There was everybody, because like I closed my shop and I moved down to Florida. That's where my wife and I were, down in St. Pete, Tampa, and I was doing Monkeys Fighting Robots, and we were going to MegaCon, and we were showing up at MegaCon, or we had a booth at MegaCon, and everybody in there, I became friends with all the different vendors, and we were chatting and everything, and then like I was talking to the comic book people, and they were just like, "Man, MegaCon sucks. It just sucks. It's the it's all about the signatures and the autographs and the doing that kind of stuff and everything, and it's fun. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's awesome. I mean, I have a picture with Kevin Smith. I'm not, I'm still, I'm doing this, doing everything else.
Your origin sounds the same as mine, dude. I was so like disgusted with the way the big shows were. Like
that's kind of what I felt when I was studying. When I was reading about Matthew. I was like, you guys, I can see why you guys would get along, all you guys, because you guys are so like,
same wavelength.
Same wavelength. Yeah, you're happy to bring indie comics people together, and have like this kind of con, like you guys are very much the same in that way.
Like I remember too, Matt. This is maybe your same experience, but it was right after, I forget what show it was. It was a very similar experience. It was a big show in Boston, and everybody was sad, like, because no one had made money because the celebrities and all that stuff, cosplay was all sucking the money out of the room, and all my vendor friends were just like, feeling like, why, they're going through that crisis of like, why do I even do this anymore? And you know what I mean? Like, why do I make comics? And, and I started thinking to my wife, I was like, geez, I wonder what it would take to start a show, because it wasn't even on my radar, nor did I ever want to run a show. But I wanted to do something for everybody that was, like, because in my community of artists and creators and stuff, and I just like wanted to do something to help these people. And so like I was like, so I went and got like the first year Johnny, that's where I first met Johnny, was at my show, was year one. I went and got like a 80 table like VFW in my small town, and like
That's awesome.
rented it. I was like, made it free admission, and I made, I brought in a couple of comic dealers, but everybody else was like indie creators. And what a day it was. Almost the whole town showed up, and it was like became like a thing. And I was so beat when it was over. I was just like, oh, I imagine you were too after your first show. But like there was something about it. I was just like, wow, people really showed up, and it's like I feel like I should keep doing this to keep that spirit going.
That's awesome. That's really good. Yeah, no, I mean, like, my thing was all about like vibe, like getting like having a certain vibe and just like, I use the word punk rock. I mean, I listen to punk rock. I also
Yeah.
listen to pop punk. I
So
also listen,
Manny's saying here too.
yeah. But like, and there's it was just one of those things where I wanted a vibe, and it happened. And people came from all over. Like, Chad from Amsterdam came from Belgium.
Oh my
We
God,
had a
that's
big
awesome.
contingent come from LA, and this year we're gonna have the Canadians come in, and some Savannah art students are coming up this year as well. So people
Wow.
traveled for this show.
I can't wait to meet them all.
And then
Yeah.
the hotel parties were awesome. We had drink and draw on Friday night. We had an after party on Saturday. I convinced them to like leave the bar open later,
Oh wow.
and
Nice. I like that.
they basically just let us take over that area. And it was so much fun. And the show itself, I just remember everybody smiling and everybody just being happy and cheery. I was running around like crazy just trying to make things work and have things happen,
Yeah.
and make sure all the things were. And that's why I have we had a couple volunteers, and like I handed one like my camera. I was like, make sure you take some photos. And then like, another gentleman was like, hey, take photos. And I was just trying to make sure that like there was some photos of it, because I couldn't do all that stuff. So we're definitely
Yeah.
gonna have like a few more volunteers this year. We'll have a few more help, a little bit more help. Um, and the people that helped out last year, my buddy Anthony and the artist Jamie Jones, they're coming back again. We're gonna have some cool panels and stuff. But big thanks to everybody. And then Eli Schwab at Cosmic Lion Publishing, like he was a big push on this, and that's why he has like Cosmic Lion Island with all his creators and all the books that he's
Awesome.
publishing.
Very
And
cool.
so there's definitely
you-
been some amazing people that have helped this come together. It wasn't just me doing it.
He said you did.
And
great,
any
man.
Manny, I know it was funny because I think it came up in a Facebook. He shared it. It's like Manny and I have been friends for, I don't know, maybe 5 years or whatever, and we've been through so much stuff because we live in Florida. I lived in Florida back then, and he still lives in Florida. Like there was a whole bunch of text message threads as hurricanes were hitting us and other things, and I was like, Manny, I feel like I've known you for like 2 decades because we've just gone through so many chaotic events
Right.
in the world. And he's like, yeah, man, I feel like that too. But Manny's awesome. He writes for Monkeys Fighting Robots as well.
Yeah, awesome, man.
he's
Yeah,
got a-
Manny, please stop by. Say hi to me and Johnny when you're there. Love to meet you, dude.
Yeah, I
So
think he's
good.
got a FIFA. He's got a FIFA interview coming up soon. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
gonna be pretty
Perfect.
awesome.
Did
But
you
yeah,
know? I gotta ask you this, Matt. The next day after you threw your first show, like what emotions were you going through? Like,
oh man, I had to go back into like dad mode. Like my buddy Anthony had like a 7 or 8 a.m. flight. I stayed up till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I like stumbled out of bed. I took him to the airport and then just like drove back home and like laid on my couch and like watched my kids. And like they jumped on me, and I was like, I'm just gonna lay on this couch for a little bit, and you guys can do whatever you want. And if you want McDonald's, I'll order McDonald's. Like we'll make them. It'll be the.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have that kind of like. It kind of just like happened, and then it was like I was back into dad mode. And I think like Monday or Tuesday is when I was like, kids went back to school, or went to school, and then the photos started rolling in, and the comments started happening, and I was like, oh man, this is really cool. It was really cool. But yeah.
Any weird things happen? Oh, sorry. I was going to ask him. I was going to ask him if any weird things happened at his con, like a shirtless guy, perhaps. Because there was a guy. There was a guy at Keith's.
Yeah, I'll tell him that story in a minute. But what I wanted to say, and Harry and Johnny, cover your ears. But the next the next day after our first show, we were back at the VFW. No, this was Monday actually. So it was like we had the show on Saturday, and then Monday, me and my wife had to go to the VFW and, pull all the tables and chairs and everything. And the paper had come out, the local paper, and we picked it up. And as we were breaking down the tables and chairs, I'm reading the story about it, about the convention and how, the guy was like, because Leominster never had anything like this. This is the town I was in. So, and the amount of people that it made happy and everything, I started crying. Like I was just I never like, it was just like, I was overwhelmed by like how happy I made everybody in the town and stuff. And, it was just like, I was choked up. I couldn't like take it. So Johnny, Harry, you can uncover your ears now.
You should have ran for mayor, Keith.
Yeah. The mayor did show up. The mayor showed up at the show.
That's like it's a Wonderful Life like Comic-Con version.
Kinda, yeah. And the thing that was amazing,
because you're talking about it was all rooted in misery. Like you were saying, how all your friends were like, "Why am I doing this?" They were having the existential creator crisis.
They had such a good show with me that year that it saved them from completely quitting, which was
jumping off a bridge.
But yeah, Amy just reminded me of it was so we have this cosplayer, which I don't know if you've ever met in your circle, called Matches Malone, who's like the Batman cosplayer in this area. He actually came to the show, and this little kid, was so happy to meet Batman that like he ended up going home from the show earlier in the day, but his mother came back later in the day. He had drawn a picture of Batman. Like it was just, like the stuff you see like a 3-year-old would draw.
Yeah.
And she wanted him, the kid wanted Batman to have it. So
that's cool.
And I was just like, oh my God, it was like just get you in the feels, So all that stuff was our first year. It was amazing, like unbelievable. So I was wondering if you had stuff like that from your show.
Monty Keene, he was one of the artists that came down, and I knew of him and people had talked about him. He does like a bootleg Spider-Man that's really good. And the morning of the show, it was like cool and chilly, and I was running around putting parking signs, where to park and where to show up to the thing. And I see this guy wandering around, and I was like, "Hey, you looking for the show? Are you looking for?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, that was the first time I met Marty. And so we walk up to the show, we take the elevator, and we're walking down the hall, and he's like, "Man, I feel like this is what it felt like at the first San Diego Comic-Con." And like he gave me like chills when he said that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh man," I was like, maybe this was what they were feeling. I don't know what they were feeling like. I don't know. Maybe, because I'm still freaking out because I don't know if anybody's gonna show up yet.
Yeah, right.
But people do show up, and then there was one cosplayer who did show up, and he dressed like one of the characters from Marty's comic book.
Oh wow, okay.
And so we had like an indie comics cosplayer show up.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah.
And we were just all blown away, like, holy shit. Because when I like interview people, usually when I talk to people, I ask them, when I'm talking to indie creators, like, hey, what's it gonna feel like when somebody shows up at your table dressed like one of your characters? So and they're always like, oh man, like that, I'll sign everything, I'll probably do a sketch for them, I'll do all this stuff, and blah blah. Yeah. And like I was actually there when it actually happened to somebody the first time, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And so I hope more people dress up like indie comic book characters. So I part of me was like anti cosplay, for my show. I'm like, I don't want cosplayers. I was like, you dress up like indie creator characters, you're more than welcome to cosplay.
Yeah. No, that's great. And like cool. I know what you mean about the cosplay thing. What I tend to do at my show is I definitely come. I don't mind cosplayers to come, but we just don't cater to any of it. We don't do the contests. We don't do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're welcome to come, but we're just not going to make a spectacle of them being there. So we're I guess pro cosplay, but we don't do any.
You're making an official stance right now.
Yeah, I guess I am. I'm pro cosplay. No, but like I feel like that's the one thing the shows have done wrong is just make that such a huge focus. Like I wish more of these bigger shows would focus more on why there's a convention, which is the comics and the creators that made them.
It's really tough because like
it is because it's a whole
is an art form. Like those people, some of those people are amazing. And then there's,
I agree.
The 40 million Deadpools and Harley Quinns. I mean, like there's different categories of cosplay. Like every time I see somebody who's built a giant Autobot transformer that transforms, I'm just like, holy shit balls. Or like, like I was like, this is insane. Or I'm trying to think of the other ones that like really, because that's what MegaCon was really good for cosplay. Like I think it's even better than San Diego for cosplay because there's a couple colleges right around in Orlando, and like those kids go nuts. And so as far as cosplay, like it's an art form, and some of these people are like doing insane stuff. So I got mad respect for all the cosplayers out there. But again, when I'm trying to like schlep books and at a show, and then I see the Anna and Elsa booth next to me, and they're just making money hand over fist.
Yeah, right.
And they've just bought a dress and a wig.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Shit. But I'm not pretty enough. I should just do
my wife eloquently said it better than me here. Definitely pro cosplay. It's just not our focus, and I think that's sort of where I'm at with it. And I'm friends with a bunch of these guys. I agree with you, Matt.
I think Batman. Don't want to piss off the town's Batman.
We can't. We can't. The guy's like.
Matches is a legend around here. Just to give you some perspective, Matt, nobody knows what Matches actually looks like. He's never taken his cowl off.
Although I love Matches though.
Like.
I love Matches because she's like a Batman that's close to my height, so I love him. It makes me feel amazing.
But this guy's legit, Matt. Like he actually goes to children's like hospitals and visits kids that are dying, and he'll actually make home visits. This guy's
he's a good guy.
This guy's like a unbelievable person, basically.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Just to hear people like that, like it's just gives you goosebumps.
Speaking of superheroes and Transformers,
because like I'm old. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm old. I'm 48.
Oh,
so
that's nothing.
I remember in the early 80s, I wanted to be Spider-Man, and I got my grandma to make me a Spider-Man costume. And I told my mom that there was web shooters out there, and I made her travel all over God's green earth as looking for web shooters for my costume. And she's like, I just can't find them. I don't know if she actually drove everywhere. I just know that she left the house. And she's like, I'm going to go look for them. And she's like, I went to Middletown. I went to this town. I didn't find any web shooters. I was like, I know they're out there. I was like, I think I was in first grade, so I was like 6-7-year-old kid being like, I need my web shooters. And my grandma, to her credit, like she found a blue, those old school onesie pajamas with the feet and stuff. She found a blue one, and then she like actually attached this, the red Spider-Man to it. So it was a suit that I could actually like jump into, and she put a hood on it, and I had the plastic mask from the old school ones, and I was able to fit over, and I was a solid Spider-Man. I just
like the face panel kind of. Is that
the old school costume?
Like the Ben Cooper mask, like the Ben Cooper masks. Yeah.
So I was able to get one of those masks, and then she had the hood, so it's still kind of like
that's cool.
Went pretty legit and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Speaking of Transformers, though, you were an extra in Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon. Is what I read?
I was.
So how
did
that happen? I want to know how that happened. What would you play?
Is there a funny story?
You were living in Chicago at the time when they were filming, right?
Yeah, they blew up Chicago. I mean, like,
they did. They blew the fuck up. If Chicago was fucking blown the fuck up in that movie.
So that was really cool. I don't remember how I got the notice about like they were looking for extras.
Yeah,
but I got on a list. I mean, Chicago's got a lot. I mean, I knew a lot of people that were like comedians and was doing commercials and ads. we did a few open mics at the comic book shop where we had comedians
Cool.
out there. And then I'm blanking on his name. Did you guys ever watch Veep? That show Veep?
I did, yeah.
So you know the tall guy?
The one that played Jonas?
I think it's Jonas. He's a tall guy. He used to come to my shop. His
Did he
skateboard
really?
in. And then like he's like, "Hey man, I gotta close my pool. I'm moving to LA." And I was like, "Okay, man." And like, 5, 6 years later, like I'm moved away, I'm like watching people. I was like, dude. And I sent him I found him on Twitter, I was like, dude. And he's like, dude, but
Oh, that's great. I love him on that show. He's the one that's the butt of all the jokes usually.
I think so. Yeah, he's going on to do a whole bunch of other things and everything like that. But I just remember
definitely a standout character in that series for sure.
I just remember him skateboarding in that day. And like, hey, I got to close my pool. Oh yeah, Timothy Simons. Yeah, that's him.
Jonas on Veep. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that guy's great. I wish I knew him. It's amazing. What was the books he read? Like, what was the comics that he used to get?
I think he was like a Marvel guy. He was like
a Marvel guy.
He was doing Marvel stuff.
Nice. I'm surprised he didn't end up in the MCU yet. I mean,
I forgot. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of. He might have done a few because he started doing like a few sci-fi movies. I kind of remember seeing him here and there and stuff. And,
I think he found his niche with comedy though. So I'm wondering if I've seen him in a couple other movies, like small movies here and there, and I'm like, oh, there's Jonas, So that's cool.
And then David Delsmolchin.
Oh yeah, from he's writing the Creature Commandos right now.
But he was also in
with the Devil.
Yeah, and he was also in Suicide Squad.
Late Night with the Devil, yeah.
Polka Dot Man. But he was like a goon in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
And so he was supposed to do a signing at my store and he had to cancel when I was doing it. And but yeah, so I've known him for a little bit. And it was funny to see him kind of rise up and do the MCU thing and now do comic books and stuff.
Did he live in Chicago too for a little while?
Yeah, he was in Chicago for a while.
Oh, cool.
And what about
Seems
this
like
business
a good
of
dude? I just watched something. I think it's is it CBR is doing some kind of segment on their YouTube channel where they visit stars that make comics, and he was like the first one on there. Seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, super nice guy. His next door neighbor is Mark Hamill.
Oh, really?
And so
that's interesting.
So his answer machine is Mark Hamill being like, "Hey, can you leave a message for David?" Because like when I interviewed him, I called him and he didn't pick up, and I was like, "Is Mark Hamill, your voicemail voice?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's my neighbor." And I was like, "Oh, Hollywood's awesome. It must be this great land."
That's great.
What about
were you trying to get him for Indie Creators Comic-Con? Were you trying to get David?
No, when I first started Monkeys Fighting Robots, I went through and I was trying to do almost like a daily podcast. And so I was like, in the beginning was like housing interviews and like, who do I know in my Rolodex that I've from different eras and stuff like that. So there was like sports guys and there was like, comedians and other people that would come through. And I was on the list. I was on the book list. So they were like, hey, so-and-so, wrote a book. Do you want to talk to them? And so I was on the radio.
Oh, cool.
For a little bit.
Very cool. So how did that start too? I meant to get to that at some point too. How did you end up starting? Is that part of your journalist background that you kind of?
Yeah. So when I moved down to Florida, I finished up my degree and I got a job at a radio station, and it was an ESPN affiliate. And so I covered like the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Bucks, the Tampa Bay Rays. And there was a whole bunch of other minor league.
A lot of different stuff, Matt. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
No, they're just the Rays though, because Devil can't be in the name, right?
I know. Yeah, the Devil Rays. Yeah, the church closed that down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I was doing that, and I was there. It was privately owned. It was a family that owned it, and so they owned like 6 stations, a couple news stations, a couple sports stations. They own a sports station in Orlando. And so I was like the catch-all. I was literally an intern for a week, and then they like hired me, and then they like gave me a promotion. They were like, "Hey, we can pay you $10 an hour." And I was like, "Hey, you know how to code? You know how to code and like, can you fix our website? We'll make you this, we'll make you that. And it was like, and so I ended up, and it was all during that, like, the transition from, analog to digital, podcasting and YouTube for like radio station. Because radio stations were just like, what do we do?
Right. They didn't know what to
When
do
the internet
yet.
came, there was like that thing in the I don't know, I know the aughts are from 0 to 10, but I don't, the teens? The
Yeah,
teens of the
maybe.
2000s, what are people
Yeah.
calling those? But during that era, that was a big transition for radio, and I was there and on the ground floor kind of helping this company out, and I got to do a lot of really cool stuff during that. Like, I went to the Super Bowl when it was in New York, I went to the All-Star game in New York when it was at the Met Stadium, and I even got, like, I got a press pass to the Guardians of the Galaxy because they had, like,
Oh,
at
neat.
Disney, they had a showing,
Yeah.
and, I'm blanking on the dude that I interviewed because he was the henchman on, in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, Kraglin, was it the director's brother, Sean Gunn?
No, it wasn't Sean. It was, now okay, so we're gonna skip that because I'm
Yeah.
on Guardians of the
I was gonna
Galaxy.
say you might not be somebody
But that, like, got me in on the movie. That got me in with the movie people in Florida, and so basically, like, the owner of the radio station company was crazy, and and I started seeing other companies start doing like digital podcasting and coming out of that, and it was like, the next round, and it's probably like round 20 of the internet at that point in time, but it was the round of like newspapers going digital and everything going digital, and I was like, oh,
it's like before it went streaming, right? It was like, like,
and so I met a coding guy who can build websites, and we were chatting. He's like, hey, you should do something in the pop culture realm, and so then I partnered with him to do Monkeys Fighting Robots, and I was so we started covering comic books, movies. I think we were doing beer and technology and all this crazy stuff. We were really big at that point in time of just our casting a net, and then we kind of just pared it down to like movies and comic books, and now like movies, comic books, TV, and now we're just comic books. But I was waking up and driving down to Miami for a 7-minute interview with whatever movie was coming out, and then like getting my feed and then heading back up. That 4 hour, I was doing that like 3.5 to 4 hour drive.
Holy crap.
And interviewing whoever was there, and then flying and driving back up, and then like editing it and getting it up and doing that all fun stuff.
Mhm.
I probably, if it was now the technology is better, I should have done like gone live while I was driving.
Yeah,
and
right.
talked about it for the 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then like talked about it on the way back.
5 shows just on the drive or something. Yeah.
How are you a Ghostbuster for a day? What was that all about? Or
Oh, the Ghostbuster for the day? Okay.
yeah, what is that?
So freshman year in college, I worked at a video store,
Mhm.
and it was called Movies, like with 2 O's, and it was like cow themed.
Yeah.
It was completely ridiculous.
That's
But
really
the
great.
owner, and this guy was like trying to be the next Blockbuster, and he was all over New York with these stores. And apparently his promotion thing, he bought an Ecto One, and he
Oh,
had
cool.
like suits and everything. And so I just
wow.
get a message being like, or I don't know how people contacted you back in the day. I think like somebody wrote a note and then they handed it to me. Like, I think maybe a fax. I probably got a fax. Like, hey, we're doing a grand opening at one of the video stores. Can somebody at the store be a Ghostbuster? And I heard that announcement, and I was like, me. I was like, that's gonna be me. Totally gonna be me.
Yep.
And so they had like really killer suits, and like they had the backpacks, and again, this is like mid 90s, so I don't know who was baking this stuff now.
Yeah.
But
So
they
no
had a
one was
huge-
really cosplaying.
Really,
at that
nobody was
point,
cosplaying back there, and they
Yeah.
had a huge inflatable Slimer. So it was like
Oh,
a guy
cool.
walked in Slimer, and it blew up.
Yeah.
And so like, Slimer would attack the video store, and then we would roll up in
funny.
Ecto One. We get out with the packs, and we shoot some stuff. And I think I said hi to some kids. I don't really. I think at the time I was really just flirting with all the women that I saw. I was like, I'm a Ghostbuster. I was like, I'm gonna own and take this.
Something
Like,
about
I
having
was
the
just-
suit, right? Like the movie suit. That's great.
Was this an original Ecto one from the movies, or is it?
I don't think it was an original.
You were channeling Bill Murray, like the Bill Murray suave.
Right. Dana.
Oh, that's
but
fantastic.
no, I think the owner of the video store company, like he had lots of money, and like I think he like commissioned or just built it on his own and everything. And
I miss those days.
Yeah, it was really just it was a fun day. They had a grand opening at another store, and I like drove out and had a good time. And
that's cool.
And again, there was no photos because it was 90s. I was like, I was like, man, if I just had one photo.
Right,
that would have been amazing. Or
just even one with you driving the Ecto one would have been like so cool to have.
There's a few around here actually. It goes to different conventions that I've seen. Like
but it's not as special now though. It's like when he did it, it was like a unique, very unique thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
My worst experience cosplaying was because I thought it was right before I opened up the store. I went to a Bears game on Halloween. And I put together the shittiest Batman costume, but I got a good cowl. I ordered a good cowl off the internet, and I was like, "Man, this is gonna be awesome!" And all the whole entire time, dudes were just flicking my ears in the bat suit, and I was just like, and I was drinking. I was like, "Do you want to fight Batman? Because a Batman will mess you up." But I was at a Bears game, and I was like, "Yay!" I was like, "This is awesome!" And then but nobody wanted to take a picture of me. Everybody was just annoyed with me. They were just like, nobody else dressed up on Halloween too. Like I was very bizarre. Like, how did nobody else dress up? Everybody on Christmas is like, oh, I'm gonna dress up like Santa. Like now you look at football games and just everybody.
Yeah, right.
And like I walked in there, I walked into Soldier Field and I'm dressed up as Batman, and they were just like, what are you doing? Like nobody got it. Like,
right. It was like it's kind of like the way comics were back then. No one. You didn't talk about that you were into comics, like it was just not a cool thing, There
was never any really cool time to do that kind of stuff because back in the day, nobody knew what we were doing, and today everyone's doing it. So there's no like real,
exactly,
sweet spot,
like it's a whole different time now,
Right.
Yeah, my kid's got a Spider-Gwen poster in her room, and I was like,
Spider-Gwen.
I would have killed for a Spider-Man poster, like even just like a cool artwork poster and all that stuff, like. It's
they just
crazy.
didn't make that kind of stuff. Now it's like a dime a dozen. So
spoiled
funny.
Kids these days.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, but go ahead, Harry.
No, I was asking my friend Lucy because she has 3 kids. She's like, I'm like, and I buy for them. Like, what do they want for Christmas? Like, and the youngest kid, he's like 7. He's like, I want the most expensive things. I want a self-transforming Optimus Prime robot transformer.
Yeah, right.
Like the things are like $800, $900. I'm like,
of course,
no. It's like, I want the 3D printer. And I'm like, no. What? I gotta get a 3rd and 4th job here to get this kid like gifts.
Oh, I know.
Like, no,
it's wild. We could just be happy with the comic,
Yeah, really.
I tried to tell people about like collecting comic books back then. I was like, listen, if you wanted something. And like you had to go to a comic book shop. You had to go to your comic book shop. And then if you wasn't there, you had to go to other comic book shops.
Yeah, right.
If you didn't find it there, you had to go to conventions. And then if you didn't find it there, you kind of just didn't get it.
Yeah, there was no eBay.
You had to go find it, you had to go searching and you had to make your list and you had to like go and find rare issues there. And that was like awesome. That was like
it was
fun. Like
that's what made conventions special too, because now anything's at your fingertips if you want something. But back in the day, you discover that there was something you would discover stuff that you didn't know existed. And that was my favorite part about conventions, especially when I used to go to like some of the horror shows back in the day, and you would find like this horror item that was like, oh my God, I never knew this existed, or, great stuff like that. But I'm going to start wrapping things up a little bit here, but before, we've been going like almost an hour, a little over 90 minutes. This is crazy. It doesn't
flies
feel
right
like
by.
It does. But one thing I wanted to talk about with Indie Comics Creator Con that we didn't get into is you got some incredible guests coming this year. Like,
this is like really awesome. Like it was cool because like I did go to Eddie P Con in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Was this after?
This was after the first show. It was over the summer, and that's where I was like, you know what, these are my people. kind of like indie where I want to be in the indie world, and I was like, I got to go out there and like put my
Was
like,
it? I would have loved to gone to that show. You know, it's funny. It's like I did not, and I feel bad about this. Like I think my indie card should be taken away, but I did not know how good the cartoonist kayfabe channel was until the incident happened with Ed
yeah.
Piskor. I was aware of him as a creator, but I never, and I was aware of that channel, but I never watched it. And then sadly, when he, passed away, I started watching the show and I was like, I can't believe I was never watching this channel because it is so good. Like, I'm glad I have years to catch up on. Like I've been watching, here and there, some of the older ones and stuff. But
I think it's
man,
Mark Maron. I think it's Mark Maron who says, I'm late to the table on this.
I was late to the table. Yeah.
But he's like, you're never late to the table. You go find it, and now with content, you're like, it's awesome, and you can go dig through it, you can keep going, and you're just joining the rest of the group. And
but how was the tone at the show? Was it like people like happy? Like were not happy?
I mean, it was. Like, I mean, it was there was a somber tone to it. It was definitely. It was more. It was it was in it. It was like in a VFW, which was kind of cool and Pittsburghy.
Yeah.
And it was mellow. It was what it was. To get their first con out there, and I'm really excited for the next one and see how they grow as well as another indie creator show as well. But no, it was cool to go out there because then a couple people that had been at my show were there as well, and they were telling everybody else how cool the show was. And so then like, Eddie's family's like, hey, can we come to the show? And I was like, yes, you can come to the show. And
That's
then,
awesome.
then Jim Rugg and Tom also reached out to me as well, and we're like, "Hey, can we come to the show?" And I met Dean Haspel at Terrificon, and then Maddie Keene was like, "Hey, do you want this guy to come to the show?" And so we chatted as well. And then Jim Lawson, he was at the first show, and he was amazing. And I was like, Jim, you can come to my show anytime you want.
Jim Lawson's great. Yeah, I've had him at my show a couple times.
But I did want to like part of the show is I want it to kind of have an educational element or like half convention, half conference, so that the creators can kind of get something out of it as well. So it was important to me to bring in Mike Martz, the editor-in-chief of Mad Cave, and also bring in Heather Antos, the editor over at IDW, because I want people to talk with editors as well. Like I want creators to kind of, like you said, like when you left your show Inspired and everything like that, like you left Mice. That's my major goal. Is I want the creators that come to Indie Comics Creator Con to have an amazing time, hopefully make some money, but also just leave jazzed and being like, I need to get home and I need to start drawing my next comic book now.
Yeah,
because I'm going to come back to IC3 next year and I'm going to have to need new stuff, or I'm going to have to go to my next indie show and like that. So that's a huge element of the show is to kind of have an educational element to it, conferencey, and you make connections, you network, like Drink and Draw was amazing, having all the different, everybody having their inks everywhere and their pens and pencils and drawing, and people were collabing, and fresh artwork was out there, and they're like, look what I'm doing, this is the comic book I'm doing with so and so. So yeah, it was just, it's a huge element, and it's part of, I call it the vibe, but that's part of the vibe.
Yeah, I love that. Are you doing panels at the show too? Like I didn't look to see if there was any programming.
Yes, we have. So on Friday, because people are allowed to load in on Friday, we're gonna do like a creator own like round table, kind of like a powwow for an hour, where we kind of just like figure out one problem for indie creators. Be like, hey, what's the biggest problem that we're dealing with? And let's try to brainstorm an answer to it, and like kind of just have like a conference among the creators. There'll be that on Friday. But then we have paneling all day during the show, and Jamie Jones is the head of that. And the goal is, our focus is panels that matter. It's awesome to talk to Jim Lawson about his historic career with Turtles and all these amazing things, but like I want something more to happen out of that. Like how can Jim help you be a better creator?
Yeah, like how did Jim get that gig on Turtles? Like that's the stuff creators are looking for, that kind of knowledge and different ways to break in, because you always hear the stories about how like no one breaks in the same way, so it's always interesting to hear all the stories
and
how
the
people
panels
did.
last year were solid and amazing, and we had Rocco Jerome was the head of that, and he was part of the Cosmic Lion booth as well, and he put a lot of work into those, and they were really good, and it was like cartoonists and creators, and we had some really good panels last year. But again, like the whole name of the game is how do we make it better? I mean, you know how it is. It's like we got this thing right here. Like I would love to get to 300 creators, have a 2-day show, get to the 3,000 people showing up. I mean, like that would be pretty insane to have an indie show that's like just packed and people are just like, hey, I need to print more books because I just sold out of everything.
Love
so, I mean,
that.
That's my focus.
And that's important for us because like I want to go to shows where I'm getting new readers, not new collectors. Like collectors are great and they're buying from you, which is awesome. But I want people to read the books and come back because they're interested in the story and artwork and everything, So that's
because we had one vendor last year, and I invited him because he runs a vendor show in New Haven.
Yeah,
and I was like, hey, here's a couple free tables. I don't want, again, we're not competing, and I want you to make some money, so come to my show. But we only had one vendor, and this year we're not having any vendors. It's just straight up, 150 creators.
So that's the one thing I wish I had done. Like I wish I had kind of made it. Like I didn't even, I don't know why it never occurred to me to make a show like yours. Like to me, it was more about getting back to what Comic-Cons were when I grew up. And so that was kind of like my guideline, I guess, But now that I see your show and having attended MICE, I'm like, shit, I wish I had done my convention more like this, But hey, I mean, I'm not going to change it now. Yeah. People love the format, love the way it is.
The mayor came to your show. You're in the paper. I mean, I mean, like, you got Batman showing up. I mean, like,
right. You're like the Pied Piper of comics, Keith.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
No, it was a good feeling for sure.
Yeah, the whole point of what we do is that we want people to read more comic books. I mean,
you're both doing the same thing. You're accomplishing the same goal or job.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to be part of your show and get back to like that feeling I had at MICE, which I think will definitely happen.
Yeah, I was really impressed with I'm new. I grew up in New York, but with the part of New York I grew up in, we only went south. Nobody came this way to Connecticut. Everybody stays away from 95. I didn't realize it as a kid, but nobody wants to be on 95. Because now when I head back to New York, I'm like, I don't want to be on 95. I don't want to go that way. But I didn't realize how cool of a comic book scene New England has. Like, New England has a pretty solid comic book scene of creators and
I think so.
Shows and comic book shops. Like, it's solid and it's awesome to be part of now.
Yeah. Like I always picture my utopia would be like the Pittsburgh and the Cleveland scene. Like that's where I picture like, all the underground stuff and all the zines and everything was always happening there. That would be like my utopia for comics, I think. But like, you're right though. I feel like there is a nice scene up in this area. That's why I think we have so many conventions in this concentrated area too.
There's a lot of conventions.
But I also feel like the indie comic scene regionally is different in every area. The experience I get from New York Comic-Con is different from the experience I get from San Diego Comic-Con. Is the experience I get differently when I go to, like, say, an Orlando show. I did Spooky Empire down there, and that felt like a whole different realm of.
Oh, Spooky is insane.
Spooky's insane, man.
Spooky is, if you're going to do a show, like, if you're going to go to a show, like, Spooky Empire is a fun show to go to.
It is a fun show.
It's a really good. I would totally put that on people's radar, and that's a fun show.
When is that one usually? When is that?
I think they have it twice a year.
Twice a year, but I've been to the October one in the past.
The October one's the big one. Yeah.
Is your wife and kids into the shows? Or sorry.
Oh, what were you saying, Harry?
No, I was asking Matt if his wife and kids are into the con scene too.
I mean, I think my wife still doesn't know what I do. It's just one of those things. But my kids have started going to the shows with me. And Terrificon's close by, so I've taken them to Terrificon.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a couple other small shows with them and stuff. I mean, like they're they bought some. It was all right. So my Terrificon this last year, we went by a booth and there was a lady who sold dragon eggs, and my kids were like, "Oh, we got to get some dragon eggs. These look awesome." And I thought they kind of understood. So we're walking around, and Tessa comes to me. She's 6 years old. She comes up and she's like, "When do you think this is going to hatch?" And I was like, "Oh no, we're having a whole different conversation now." And I was like, I turned around and I went back to that booth, and I was like, "My daughter has a question for you," and she's like, and Tessa's like, "What do I need to do to have this hatch?" And she's like, and without skipping a beat, she's like, "Dragon eggs, like dragons live for a very long time, and it takes dragon eggs a long time to hatch. So it might not happen in your lifetime, but you can pass the egg on to your kids, and it might hatch in their lifetime."
What a great answer.
And as a dad, I was like, "That is the best answer ever."
She's had that
still in their room.
That question a million times, probably.
And each of my kids have a dragon egg in their room, and they're just sitting there like, they're like, "Do you think it's gonna hatch?" And I was like, "I don't know if it's gonna hatch." It's like, but they're all sitting there waiting. So I wonder how long it's gonna last.
You know what it is? That's the modern day pet rock, right? It's not the rock; it's the story that went with it, right?
Yeah, right.
That's what sells the object. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that's kind of like Keith at your convention. Like one of Lucy's kids, her youngest, he's like 7 years old, and he loves, for some reason, rabbits. He loves them. Like just likes watching cartoon with rabbits. Like he draws rabbits. I showed him how to draw a rabbit, whatever. And then when he came to your convention, like this past summer, in his pocket he had like a folded up drawing. And my friend's like, "Oh, show him your drawing." And he takes it out of his pocket and he shows me this drawing of a rabbit. I'm like, "Oh my God, you drew that? Yeah, it's awesome." And then we go to one of the vendors, and he was talking about how he wrote the book, he drew the pictures, and like, isn't that great? It was our first convention. I'm like, "Isn't that great, guys?" Like, I've been trying to get them to go for years,
Yeah, right.
And like they're like I'm amazed at all the stuff they're seeing, and I bought them the first comics and everything. And then I'm like, so the guy was just talking. I forgot his name, but he talked for like 20 minutes to the kids about the things he drew, things he wrote. And I'm like, "Hey, Alden, show him your drawing. You're a creative too." And it like shows us like a rabbit drawing. He's like, "Oh my God, you did that!" And like just like to see them, he's like so happy to show him his rabbit drawing. That's awesome. But they're exactly
with them.
Exactly. So and they're excited about the show, and they want to come next year. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm working really hard to get more high school students to come to the show, and because there's 2 high school teachers that are going to be tabling at the show this year, and they teach comic book making in class.
Oh, cool! That's very cool.
I'm working really hard to reach out to the schools and the libraries to kind of like I want to inspire people, and I really that moment, even if it's like one kid out of a show that comes in is like, "Holy shit, I'm going to make comic books now." Like that's a great idea to happen there.
I remember back in
it's that old saying about there's a comic for everyone, like it's just connecting the two together.
Yeah,
the
you
person
just gotta,
and the comic.
you gotta get the kid and the comic book in the same room, and
then the magic happens. It's fantastic.
Back when I was a kid, there's a guy that came like a children's book, author or creator or whatever, and he came to our school. He wrote us a book, and then he showed us how to make our own little books, and nobody cared. I mean, I'm pretty creative, I'm an artist, and I draw all the time, but so I kind of liked it, but everyone else like, "Nah, that's kind of cool," and they kind of gave it. But if you had what you were talking about, bring them to the convention and learning hands-on how to, like just seeing the final product, how to do things, that's pretty awesome. Like I think more kids would be interested. Yeah, right. That again, another memorable thing. They can see like tangibly what they can do.
I shared the link to the Indie Comic Creators Con in the chat, so if you guys want to check it out. Are you sold out of tables for this year, Matt, already?
I think we're full. Yeah, we're full and on a wait list.
Okay. But you still
but
taking waitlist people in case.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically if you go to our Substack and sign up for that, that's where I kind of like send out all the emails through our Substack, Indie Comics Creator Con.
Okay.
If you Google Indie Comics Creator Con, like everything shows up.
Right. Yeah. You
For
guys
it.
have an Instagram.
Yeah,
What
Instagram also.
what's the admission like for your show? Is it what's the
It's
prices?
$8. Admission's
Oh, that's
$8,
awesome.
and then it's like $5 for for students or military, all those things. And then I'm
One
gonna do.
suggestion I would give you, Matt, is you may want to just bump it up to 10 because I used to do $2 admission, I think, and I must have went to the bank 50 times that day to get ones. So if you're gonna do $8, make sure you have a ton of ones. I mean, like
Yeah, I think
$1,000 worth of ones.
I
Unless it's
think I
all like
did.
credit cards,
Yeah, I think I was thinking about that, and then you know what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna print out a whole bunch of $2 coupons, and they
Okay.
can give that to there's no change. I give them the $2 coupon. You can give that to a creator, and then I will give them the $2. Like I think
There you
I'll
go.
I
Venmo
like
them the
that.
$2
That's
or
a
something
great
like that.
idea.
Oh, I
You
like
know,
that too. Great idea, man. Yeah,
so
that's good. I like that a
because like
lot.
last year the tickets were $10, and people were still. I was like, hey, we don't take cash. Like, just don't give me cash. And people were still. I was like, if you have exact change, I'll take your cash. But if you don't, like, just give me a card.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. Um. So, but yeah,
Or
it's
if you do a lot of pre-sales, like we
yeah,
get
we did
some pre-sales, but we get a lot of cash at the door
yeah,
too.
we ended up with cash at the door, and I was trying to stay away from that because I wasn't sure. Again, first show, you don't know what's gonna
Yeah,
happen
right.
with it and stuff like
It's all
that.
the
So I
stuff
was
you learn.
yeah. But this year we're gonna definitely have. Yeah, we're moving a few things around to kind of make it easier for people to get in and out of the building and like logistics that way. And then, I got a few more people that are going to help me at the front door to kind of, and then in certain areas that I know they're like, hey, you got to go this way, you got to do this thing. And,
Yeah.
after the first show, you kind of know, learning all
Yeah,
So
that.
so
exactly.
it's still a 1 day show, right? Not a 2 day show yet.
Yeah, it's still a 1 day show, but we've expanded and taken over the whole third floor of the Southern Connecticut State University, like student center. And it's
Mhm.
got a big ballroom. It's got a big foyer slash hallway that's all big windows, and so it's very airy, very bright, and everything. And then we have all there's little breakout rooms, and those have tables all in there too. And there's like
Oh, wow.
there's open areas between the rooms, so you can kind of see that there's other stuff going on. And then the panels are on the same floor on the third floor too. Last year we had on the first floor we had a big 200-seat theater, and it was hard to get people from the third floor to the first floor, even though it was an
Mhm.
amazing space. But it was still, so we put the panels up on the third floor, so everything's up there. But I'm working with the
Smart.
school to try to find a space for 300 tables. Like they have a big arena gymnasium, and so I'm going to talk with them about trying to get that because that would be the goal. The goal to have it to grow it to 300 tables and have it be a 2 day show. There's tons of free parking there and everything like
How
that
many
too.
how many tables do you have now? Or how many?
I think it's like 135.
That's still pretty damn good,
Yeah,
actually.
and so
Because
we
like our
have
show right now is about 160, so you're right around our level. So yeah, it's
yeah,
not
and
bad at
so I
all.
think we have like 150 plus creators now because there's some people that
That's
have more
crazy.
than
Yeah,
and Cosmic Lion Island, they have like 15 creators coming down from all their books and everything. So yeah, it's
I'm
gonna be.
excited, dude. Johnny, you must be pumped that this
psyched.
show. I mean, if it was ever catered to our people, like I feel like
So I was just gonna say, you sold me on Friday night. You said there's Friday night activities where it's more of like a think tank for creators, and I really, really like that idea. I think I'm gonna try to come in on Friday night now
yeah, I'm thinking
to
about that
partake in a
too
little bit
now.
of that. Is there a host hotel that
Yeah, there
creators
is a
should look
host. So
for
if
to
you go to the
stay?
website, there's a link to the. We got the block of rooms over there.
Oh, cool.
So I just talked to
Okay.
them today, and I think we're almost sold out of hotel rooms, which is awesome because like
That
I
is
think that's
awesome.
where everybody, that's honestly that's where insider news, but that's everybody that's coming to the show that I'm bringing, like they're staying at that hotel too. So
Oh,
you want to
cool.
hang out, I don't know if Jim Rugg's going to hang out later on, but like that's the best chance to hang out with them
Of catching up. Yeah,
or
catching up.
Dean or whoever else is going to be hanging out and stuff. So
Very
um,
cool.
Well, yeah, the drink and draw on Friday night was awesome, super mellow, and then the after party on Saturday night was probably one of the cooler nights I've had, drinking with creators.
That's
Nice.
You know?
No, this sounds like a great time all around. So, March 15th, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. $8. You can buy tickets online ahead of the event, which is you just go to the website, which I just posted in the chat. If you're watching this tomorrow or later in the week, we have the link to Indie Comics Creator Con in the description of the video. So check that out there. And also check out Matt's YouTube channel for monkeys fighting robots and his website for that as well. If you're looking for reviews for all kinds of comics, you do mainstream and indie on there as well, right, Matt?
Yeah. No, we're comic focused and kind of just. I'm still trying to come up with the perfect review of a comic book. That's my perfection.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site now. Wow, you gave Seasons #1 5 stars. Is that good? Is it really that good? I have the.
It's Nandor's book, man.
Who is that?
It's a good
Seasons. Nandor.
I mean, we could have a whole nother podcast.
No. This is a different one from Image.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were talking about Nandor's book.
But I'm actually anti 5 stars.
Okay.
You can do 4.5. You can do 4 3/4. But like, 5 stars is the best book you've ever written.
Right.
Ever read. Like, what is the best book that you've ever read?
Who knows? I mean,
so Seasons was that good, huh?
Seasons
was that good.
So I didn't write the review. One of the writers, but I'll have the conversation with that writer now. I'll send him a message, like, what is the best book you've ever read?
Okay.
And this Seasons that, and I'm like, well, it's cool. I was like, so I'm always like, you got to think about what you're when you give somebody 5 stars, you got to think about that. That's the
greatest thing you've ever read. Yeah, you don't want. I gotcha. You don't want the reviewer to be like the guys that you always talk to in high school that their favorite movie was the last movie they saw. You know, you must have run into that when you worked at the video store. Like, what's your favorite movie? Oh, it was just something that came out the weekend before. You know,
it's crazy.
So funny. But yeah, no, I like the website and everything. So yeah, I'll definitely have to do a deep dive on your stuff here and check it out. But yeah, no, Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Did you have anything else, like social media, anything else you wanted to shout out to?
I mean, Indie Comics Creator Con. I mean, that's basically it on all the different social media platforms. I mean, this is so we Instagram, and we're doing I think it's Instagram, Facebook is basically where we've been putting most of the information out. Substack is where I kind of write long form content, but we do like indie creator spotlights on Instagram and Facebook, and then Substack. Those are the big 3 for that. Again, social media is crazy, so
it is. I gotta admit, I like your Substack because I'm getting into that a little more with like creators that I like. I follow their newsletters and stuff, and feel like that's a better experience now than social media, trying to, find out about their stuff and what's going on with them.
What was old is now new.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, it really is. And it's a good way to cut out the noise for sure. Johnny,
I was going to say, welcome to Blue Sky.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I'm on Blue Sky, and I've kind of personally blown up on Blue Sky. I think I got like 1,500 followers already, and it's cool and stuff, but who knows how long it's going to last.
That's the thing. Like with the new social medias, like are they gonna take off, or it's gonna go the way of Mastodon where no one's following?
I was looking through IC3's Instagram feed, and I was like, oh yeah, I posted about Kara, that social media feed, and I was like, I don't think I've posted that in a long time, but nobody so, and that was supposed to be the hot new anti-AI thing, and
right,
but now we have Blue Sky, so I mean, like I don't know, man. We'll see how it all pans out, but that's why I was kind of just sticking with Instagram and Facebook, because then
the
I
basics.
you could pay the boost stuff if you wanted to, and
absolutely
go that route. And it's but then the email list is kind of like, I think, the most important thing for us to get the word out. And I
got to shift a little bit too. I also find YouTube is a good way to cut through the noise. I think video is, people are more interested in or more willing to watch a video than like read stuff or like read through a feed, So I find like this is a good format too to like talk to people.
People forget that like YouTube is almost as big as Google when it comes to like search and doing those things. So if you type in whatever you're looking for, Google owns YouTube. So I mean, that's a
right. Yeah, it's like feels like every social media owns somebody. Yeah, exactly.
So, but no, YouTube is huge, and if you're an indie creator trying to get the word out, like definitely posting how to's or just posting updates to your work and all that stuff, and be like, hey, I'm working towards this issue and getting it out in the road to my. But again, like I always feel like you have to do something else to sell the thing that you want to sell, and that's always frustrating.
It is, and it's like. The only thing I know how to do is try to keep building an audience and then hopefully you get to that point where you have enough people that anything you say, they'll run with, or they'll want to hear more about, so like we've been building up this channel for how long now, Johnny? 4 years, maybe 3 years.
Well, just past COVID, right? So
just past COVID. So we started this show, and it's been a long journey to where we are now. And I still don't think we're over, I think we got 1,100 subs, or maybe a little more than that.
But you know what, though? Ours is a natural build of just over time.
It was, It's not fake bots and things like that.
Bots, you got people chiming in when your live feed, so that's always good.
Yeah, that's always a positive. We got engagement.
A good community going on here. So you're doing the work. You're doing the
work.
We
are, yeah. It always helps when we have a great guest like you that can carry a conversation and everything, which is great. Johnny, Harry, I think I'm going to start wrapping this up for all of us and, not do any more segments since it's been about 2 hours now.
Yeah, right.
Do you guys have anything you want to shout out? And then we'll close the stream together.
Nothing specific or nothing too big this week. So I'll go to Johnny.
You'll concede.
I'll defer.
All right. How are you, Johnny?
I'm going to defer any of my updates until the next show, which will be enough time because I think we're off next week, right?
No, we got a show next week, I believe, and then we're off for 2 weeks for the holidays.
Oh, okay. We're off for the year.
Right, well, I'll save everything for next week because that'll be good as to
we got one more show next Monday with 2 guests, and then we're off for 2 weeks
for the
after
year.
That. So
Yeah. So I'll save my updates for then. But I do want to take the time right now to thank Matt for coming on. Dude, thank you for taking time out of your day to come on, talk about yourself, talk about IC3, talk about all your endeavors, your personal experiences. Greatly appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. It was great meeting you in New York Comic-Con, but I'm glad we got 2 hours of 2 hours and 3 minutes together. This was amazing.
Quality time.
For sure.
Yeah, that's
I'll be looking forward to hanging out at the convention too, coming up in March.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can come in on Monday night too, because it sounds like that might be a good thing to do. Just come and hang out with everybody and get to know the show a little bit. But also, I just want to shout out a couple things real quick. Mighty Mascots number 10 still live on Indiegogo. Check that out. We have about 15 days left, and then it goes in demand because we've already hit the goal, which is awesome. And it'll be in demand until we actually make the book. So, you still have time after that. And then also for the Plastic City side, registration is now open for all artists and vendors. So if you're looking to get a table at this year's show, just go to plasticcitycomiccon.com and sign up now and send us your application. Also want to thank Matt for joining us tonight. I knew you'd be a great interview just from the few videos I watched, and you did not disappoint, Matt. And I'm totally looking forward to Indie Comics Creators Con, so I cannot wait for that. So I'm looking forward to shaking your hand in person when we're at that show. So all right, everybody. So as we were saying, we will be live next Monday. If you're new to the channel, definitely like, subscribe, share, join us in our live streams. And most importantly, read some comics. So, all right. Good night, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you next Monday. Good night, everyone.